Hello, everybody. It is Thursday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, Assistant Sports Editor for Multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, joined for the latest episode of the PG Penn State Show here on the brand new Penn State YouTube channel from the Post-Gazette. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Please like this video if you enjoy it. Help us out in the YouTube algorithm. We always appreciate that. This is Isaiah Maldonado. He is our Penn State insider this season. We are going to get into Drew Allar and talking about the expectations externally, internally this season for him. He's going to be the focus for a lot of people, especially nationally. He is somewhat the face of the program, despite the presence of some very solid playmakers in Kyron Allen and Nick Singleton. Listen, if you watch the national discourse at all, you know that the critics are all watching Drew Allar. Isaiah, when you were in town for the NFL draft as a PG intern last spring, you and I debated, does Drew Allar have it? And I think I kind of believe he does. I've always thought that he was let down by his receivers last season. I look at that interception at the end of the Orange Bowl. I see a lazy route and a guy trying to make a throw to win the game, knowing that over time the momentum had been on Notre Dame's side. You only need a field goal to win the game. You have to take some chances to win the game. His receivers were not equal to that task. We talked about the receivers on Wednesday, but we're talking about Drew now. I know you've been a little bit more skeptical. So what have you seen from him in this preseason, in this training camp session that he's either reinforced how you feel about him or maybe made you a little more optimistic that he is going to be able to handle the external pressure where all these people are talking about, Drew Allar stinks, Drew Allar's going to fail. Drew Allar throws interceptions, even though his entire historical record says he's very good at preventing those types of turnovers. What have you seen from him, and what are your feelings going into the opener Saturday against Nevada?
I mean, listen, Adam, you're right on the money. I was very skeptical of him at the end of last season. I think a lot of that wasn't to his own fault. I do think, to your point, it was definitely a lack of weapons around him. Just the Tyler Warren being our consistent option, it kind of limited our offense, especially when we were reluctant to run plays for our wide receivers. I do think that led to a loss of confidence from their part. Also, obviously, I do think there was just we could have had some more talented guys in those positions. Definitely something that we addressed when we spoke about the wide receivers. But in terms of what I've seen from Allar thus far, I think he's gotten better. I think he's gotten a lot better. I think his presence alone as a leader is something that is very impressive to me. Getting the opportunity to see him at these training camps, see him make these reads, the level of just voice he has on the field, talking to these new transfers, talking to these new true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, and saying, this is how the route is going to be ran. This is where I need you to be. Also taking the criticism head on, saying, hey, this ball could be here. And, you could hit me on my inside shoulder, hit me on my outside shoulder, hit me when I make this turn, hit me when I make this post, whatever the case may be. He's been very receptive to it all, and he's been a lot more of a prominent figure within the offense, which is exactly what we needed from him. So very happy in that regard. In terms of his technical skill, I never doubted that it was there. I mean, when you look at his optics and you just look at him as his frame, who he is, 6'5", 235, he's got what every NFL head coach, every college head coach dreams about at the quarterback position. He's built for it. There's no line he's never going to be able to see over. He's got a cannon of an arm. And last year, his biggest jump in terms of production came from his completion percentage. He did take kind of a step back in terms of touchdown and interception ratio, but I'm okay with that because, one, it was still solid. And two, I want to see him make those attempts. I want to see those deep passes downfield. I'd rather that than the conservative play calling, which is going to limit us from ever seeing those big plays come out. But he went from 59 to 65, 66. So a very big jump in terms of completion percentage. The arm strength is still there. He's hitting guys in stride. He's hitting them where they want. And he seems a lot more comfortable within the offense. Andy Kotelnicki spoke about him, just his best weapon is his football acumen. So his ability to be able to read a play, read a defense, understand what this play is going to do, how he's going to match up against an offense, or how he's going to match up against a defense, and just even his audible potential to just read a defense and say, actually, we're going to switch it up and do this. He seems very comfortable within the offense under the second year of Kotelnicki, and he seems a lot more confident, and that could largely be in part to the new weapons around him, but I think there's a good amount of development from him as well.
What are reasonable expectations for him? You mentioned the completion percentage. It went up in terms of year to year, but it went down when you get to the playoffs. I feel like, and I'm looking at this as a Penn State fan. I don't I don't care about where Drew Allar goes in the NFL personally. If I'm a Penn State fan that wants Penn State to win the national championship this season, to me, his NFL future is a separate question for can he get the job done at Penn State as their guy. Within that context, not necessarily what he has to show scouts, but in terms of getting the job done at Penn State, what are reasonable expectations for him? Is it just winning? Is it keeping the train on the tracks, beating these teams, keeping them out of ugly situations against teams that they're better than? Is it some level of dominance and going out and running up numbers against these bad teams and taking opponents out of games early, especially at home? Or is he just simply going to have to win playoff games and games against the Oregons and the Ohio States before he ever gets that monkey off his back? I'll tell you what it is for me. I want to see more of what we saw at USC last season with those clutch fourth down completions. I want to see more of that touchdown pass late in the Big Ten championship game that kept them in it to Trey Wallace on fourth down in the middle of the end zone in Indy. You need more of those types of throws in the big spots. And to me, when you have 2,000-yard backs in Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton, it's going to be hard for him to, I think, stat it up the way people expect him to have a Heisman caliber statistical campaign. I'm not holding him to that standard. I'm holding him to the standard of, are you going to make the throws that matter in these games to keep this team that is so loaded going in the right direction?
And for sure, Adam, I agree with you there. I do think, obviously, when you have a prolific backfield such as Allen and Singleton, it's going to be hard to get to those numbers of, 4,000 passing yards, 35 passing touchdowns, the numbers that would really solidify him to being in that Heisman conversation. In terms of getting people off his back, I think you said it best. The biggest knock for him has been his play in those big games, the Oregons, the Ohio States. And obviously, the conference play continues this year. We're going to match up against Oregon, wideout. We're going to match up against OSU. We need to see how he's going to play in those scenarios. And obviously, I think this year he has the weapons to do so. I think in terms of making the right play and being able to, once again, hit people in their stride, thread the needle. These Big Ten defenses are nothing to scoff at, especially OSU. I know we got Jim Knowles. I know that we have the mastermind behind their defense, but they have a lot of dogs on that team that are going to, once again, anchor a very, very impressive defense. So for Allar, it's going to be a matter of you have the football acumen, you have the mindset, you have the physical traits, you have the skill set, but can you put it all together in those high pressure scenarios? And I think with the playmakers that he has this year and what I've seen from him in terms of preseason and training camp, his development has been there. He seems to be a lot more comfortable taking those snaps and making those reads, comfortable passing, making the deep ball, passing midfield. His reads, his progressions have gotten better. So I do think that in terms of just what he needs to do, play like he always play against how you do against the non-conference opponents. Play like that against the conference opponents, against the powerhouses in the Big Ten.
Isaiah, quickly on this one, then we'll get to some over-unders to end the show here. How much do you think the loss of the safety valve that Tyler Warren represented is going to affect him? Is he going to be able to distribute the ball and not focus so much on the one guy when things get tough? Because I don't know that, and we'll see. These guys will have a chance to prove that they can be the next Tyler Warren, but I suspect that you're going to have to recreate that type of production in the aggregate by being able to read the field and distribute the ball more efficiently to a higher volume of targets. Is he capable of doing that?
I definitely think that he is. I think obviously whoever comes out and fully replaces right now, it's looking like it's going to be Khalil Dinkins. And we've seen some flashes from him in terms of what he can do, not just as a blocker, but as a pass catcher. And I think he's going to, even Allar said it himself, that he was going to play a much more prominent role in the offense. So I think there's a sense of familiarity and play calling that Dinkins is going to be able to execute. So he will be able to still execute some plays, hit Dinkins on a good amount of routes to be able to get that production out of the tight end spot. But like you said, Dinkins isn't Tyler Warren. He's not going to magically out of nowhere unless he does. If he does, props to him, would love to see it. But everything points towards him not having a 1,200, 1,100 yard receiving yard season, being the same threat in the passing game that Warren was. But as I've mentioned previously, his reads and progressions have gotten so much better. Being able to analyze the field, seeing who's open, make a tight pass through a very, very narrow opening and hit a guy completely in stride to where he's not losing top speed. He's going to be able to turn up field, get the ball to his playmakers and let them do the rest from there. That's the kind of group that I think we have at wide receiver. And I think the development that I've seen from him in the offseason, it's going to allow him to be able to find those targets. And I'm excited to see what Kotelnicki does in terms of play calling around these new offensive weapons at wide receiver. Obviously, he's a crafty mastermind. We saw all the things he did with Tyler Warren to get him open. I'm sure he'll do some things with Dinkins as well. But in terms of getting these guys open, what are they going to do? I'm very excited for it. But I do think that Allar has the ability and is honestly, I think it should be expected to this year with how much he's improved to be able to make those reads, distribute the ball to a wider variety of targets, and have the offense be a much more balanced attack.
Let's get to these over-unders, Isaiah. I'm going to do yards, touchdowns, interceptions. Let's start with yards. He finished with 3,327 in 2024. I set my over-under at 3,500. Can he hit or can he go over or under that number? You're not going to find these at FanDuel, by the way, our friends down at FanDuel. You're going to see them. This is just Adam Bittner's created over-unders for the sake of conversation. I'm going to say under on the yards, Isaiah. I think if this offense is doing what it's designed to do and pound teams into submission with the running backs, I don't think you're going to see the huge production days from Drew Allar. At best, if Penn State's working the way it's supposed to, I don't think you want to see that volume of yards from Drew Allar. So I'm going to go with the under, but not necessarily because I don't think he can hit that number, but more so because if you buy the theory of Penn State, he shouldn't hit that number.
I definitely see where you're coming from. I'm actually going to take the over, and I don't think it'll be by much, objectively speaking. I could probably see him ending up with that 36, 37 mark. But I do think that coming off their loss against Notre Dame at the end of last season, we saw how the team, James Franklin and everybody else, they spoke to us as fans saying that we need more consistent receiving threats. And I think with that being such a big kind of just point of the offseason, that I think the production in the passing game is going to increase by a decent amount. I don't think, once again, the core of Penn State's offense, when you have a running duo of Kyron Allen and Nick Singleton, is going to stay that's their identity. It's just a byproduct of how talented they are as running backs. But I do think that with all the new weapons and just kind of Kotelnicki, what I've seen from him and what he spoke about in terms of wanting this offense to look like, I think the passing game will be a little bit more prominent. I could see him getting over
30 touchdowns was the number I set, Isaiah. 24 was where he finished a year ago. You lose a great red zone threat in Tyler Warren. But I think 24 is still a little bit of a low number. I think he's going to be able to find some of these other guys. So I'm going to go slightly over on the no, I'm not going to go over 30. I would go over the 24 of last season. I think I'm still going to go under 30.
I think I would agree with you. I think he might be right under 30. I could see it happening, but I do still think that at the end of the day, the goal of bringing in these receivers and having these new threats is to get the ball up the field. I think at the end of the day, when you're in that goal line situation, you just want to pound it in just because it's the safest thing to do. And it's just the obvious play when you have two talented backs. So I don't see him throwing a lot of, those 5-10 yard passes. I think a goal line situation is always going to constitute one of the backs getting the ball. But I definitely do see him, that production getting a little bit up, maybe like it could be a 28-29 type season. He could be right under there.
Especially if they go on an extended playoff run. The last one I had was interceptions, throws 8 last season. That's a little more than 1 every 2 games. Just to put that in context, because Penn State played so many games, 8 sounds like a big number to me, but when you consider how many extra games they ended up playing, I don't think it is a huge number, Isaiah. So I'm going to go over on the interceptions, but I'm going to explain why I think that's a good thing. I think I did this on the same podcast a year ago. I want to see him take more chances. I want to see him, being more aggressive downfield. And that's naturally going to lead to some turnovers. And I think people need to be okay with that if you're getting the production that goes along with it and that you want to see. And this increase, Isaiah, that you're talking about is, I don't think, going to come without some mistakes or without some, how I look at that Orange Bowl interception as you got to try to win these games. You got to take chances. You got to take risks. And that's where, we didn't see it from him 2 years ago. That's why he didn't throw practically any interceptions. We saw more of it last year. Of course, you want the risks to be calculated, But I'm okay with this guy making some mistakes if they're in service of getting more out of this passing game overall.
I understand where you're coming from. I'm going to go under. And I think for kind of a very similar reason, but also I think it lies in me taking the under is the faith in his personal development. At the end of the day, we're on the same page in terms of wanting to be more aggressive downfield, hitting those targets on those 20, 30, 40 plus yard passes to have that big play potential. It's a morale booster. You get a play like that, the tide shift in your favor. So I am okay with him making some mistakes. And if it's a 50-50 ball and it just happens to not go his way, totally understandable. But I do think that what I've seen from him just purely in terms of accuracy and his ability to put the ball in a near perfect spot. Nothing is perfect, but he's gotten a lot better at putting the ball exactly where he wants it. And I think he'll probably make the bulk of his mistakes earlier on when he's still figuring out exactly where his receivers want that ball consistently. But I think once he gets that down packed, I could see probably like 6 to 7 interception on the season. I think 8. If he goes over 8, it's not a problem, but I have faith in his ability as a passer.
All right, there you have it, folks. That's the preview of the season for Drew Allar, Penn State's quarterback. If you're just joining us for the first time, again, please subscribe to the channel. Love to have you along for the full season. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Help us out in the YouTube algorithm. We will have our Penn State-Nevada game preview on Friday, so stay tuned for that. We will see you next time. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.